Hey there, welcome back to my channel and to today's video where I'm playing with an Oden palette. I held off on this for quite a while because I was having some problems with their formula. I'll get into that, but today I'm using the Earthwood palette and giving you general first, second impressions, creating today's eye look, and if you would like to see any of that, stick around. If you've been here a while, you'll know that my esteem for Oden has dropped a bit in recent years. I feel like 2023 through 2024 was giving us palettes of lesser quality than what I had known from them before. They used to be my top favorite brand, and I can't say that anymore. Now, recently I tried a palette. I actually bought it for my birthday, and it was the Mighty Monster palette from their second iteration of the legendary Diversa collaboration with Annette from Annette's Makeup Corner, Tina from The Fancy Face, and I was gonna say Lucy. Not Lucy, Judy. Their first collab was such a huge success, and so everyone, I think, was excited about the second iteration of it. So I bought the Mighty Monster palette, which was the one with Annette's Makeup Corner, and I was hugely disappointed in that palette. I felt like the shimmers were all dry. One of them was so hard pan I couldn't really do anything with it. And then the mattes, a couple of them were patchy. It was just, it didn't do it for me, and I was very disappointed. And since then, I actually got rid of a couple other Oden palettes when I started to see those same problems, specifically the Jewels and Gem from that Yeord's Divine collection, which I thought was a beautiful palette. Oh my goodness, there was one like soft gray-leaning lavender shade that was a perfect transition. It was dreamy. But there were also a couple of more dry shimmers in there, one or two that were kind of hard pan, and I found somebody on MERCARI who was in search of, and I thought, they can have mine. Anyway, there are still several Oden palettes in my collection, which I love, and there was one of that second iteration of the trio, which had what I felt was the most interesting of the three color stories. I found that palette, and it was very affordable, and I thought, okay, this is a color story which I prefer, in a formula which I'm not sure about. My expectations are kind of low. This is the Earthwood palette, and I just love this color story, love this packaging. The packaging is always beautiful. And I thought that for the $15 I paid for it secondhand, if I hated it, it would kind of cinch things for me. You know, this is the final straw. I might have to wait until I hear a lot of positive feedback. Oh yes, everyone, they've reformulated and now it's great again. I might need to wait for that before I would be interested in spending my money on more Oden. I know that I can work with the Oden formula, and even if it's not tip top, as long as the palette's not a total dud for me, I'll most likely enjoy it. So for the price, again, I ended up picking this up. This is their collaboration with Tina. I don't know if I said. I think this color story is gorgeous. So today I'm going to play with it for the second time. I used it once before and I had a good result. I paired it with something else. I forget what. I'll put it in the video here when I'm editing. I forget what I paired it with, but I used, I think, these two mattes in that look, and I had no problems. So this bodes well, and I'm excited. Hopefully today's experience will be equally good. The real test is going to be the shimmers, I think. As far as mattes being patchy, brown is pretty easy to formulate. It's hard to mess up across the board. The cheapest brands can do a decent brown. So if there are patchy mattes, I think it would be one of these. This one might be a little thin. I'll probably play with this one today and see how it turns out. But the shimmers in a lot of Oden palettes, they can get hard pan. And the last couple I've tried, like I said, they were sort of dry and grainy. I'm curious to see what these are going to do. So we'll see. We will see. I have primed my eyes with the Glamlight Icing Primer in the shade Buttercream. Everything I'm using is linked in the description box. Let's put this palette to the test and see how it does. I'm going to start with that sagey green. It's called Heal. This is a Singe EO2. The palette mirror is pretty small, but I think it'll do. Okay, that's nice. That is not thin. It's not as thin as it could have been. Yeah, that's... So far, so good. That's nice, and it's done. Done. Don't need to do anything else. There's a lot of kick up, but I can deal with that. Moving on, let's pick up a tighter brush. This is now the Blend Bunny B4. I want to take, I think I want to take the Wood shade. I'm not feeling super adventurous today, and I want to see how this darker shade performs. It's a beautiful color. And again, this is the shade in the palette that I would expect to perform well because it's just a brown. I'm going to lay it down, a little blob of color here. Not patchy, nice pigment. I have a friend who has this palette, and she liked the looks that she got from it. And then later she acquired Mighty Monster, and she was saying, oh, I understand what you're saying, when she used her Mighty Monster. So I said, before I bought this one, I said, okay, you have to tell me. How do you feel they compare next to each other? Earth would behave the same, because if so, I don't want to buy it. You know, I don't want to just throw away my money. I'm up for a little experimentation, but not recklessness. And she said that she overall had better experiences with Earthwood. Now I'm taking the lighter brown, which is called Earth. And I'm just going to hit the edges of this dark brown. That was helpful for me in making the decision that, okay, maybe, I mean, there's a chance that my Mighty Monster was just overall a dud. I don't know how that could be the case. It seems more likely that in a production line, one shade could be a dud in all the palettes, but less likely that one entire palette would be a dud. I don't know. I have heard other people saying that Uden's Eye's quality is a bit suspect lately. And then I heard other people saying, yes, that's the case, but they might have redeemed themselves with the 2024 Christmas palettes. Particularly Silvery Bliss seems to be pretty well liked. Anyway, it was really helpful that she was able to compare them side by side and give me what her thoughts were. And she felt bad. She's like, I don't know what to say. I don't want you to buy it on my recommendation and find that you don't like it. Like, you don't have to worry about that. I'm not going to blame you for me choosing how I spend my money. Anyway, so far, I'm liking this more than Mighty Monster, even with just these few shades. As I said in the other look, I did use the Peachy Matte Salmon. It's pretty salmon, actually. I did use the salmon colored matte and this brown one that I'm using now, and I did not have any issues. It seemed to behave just fine, so that was encouraging. Okay. I want to start with a brush with the shimmers. I don't tend to use brushes. Typically I use my finger these days, but because I have a lot of experience with Uden's Eye shimmers hard panning, some of that can be caused by the oils in your finger contacting the shadows and like pressing everything down. So this palette was almost untouched when I got it. As I said, I got it secondhand. I think maybe 40% of the shades in here were swatched. So if the shimmers were just one or two swatches and then the person sold the palette, then I'm not too worried about hard pan, but I just want to see, for my own personal reference and edification, I just want to see what these shimmers are going to do first with a flat brush. So I will take the shade Moss, which is a beautiful forest mossy green. I want to see how it picks up. I want to see what kind of kick up I have, what it does on the brush. Can you guys see? It seems to be laying down pretty smoothly on the brush. I don't see a lot of kick up in the pan. There's definitely some, but not tons. This is what it looks like, and I'm gonna put this on the center of my lid. I mean, that's lovely. It is exactly the color it looks in the pan, so true to pan is always nice. I'll kind of blend it into these darker brown shades over here. But this shimmer is a little bit darker than my darker brown. So just, I will take the shade Leaves, which is the dark green in the palette, just a tiny bit of Leaves, and tap it on top so that the green shimmer can blend into the dark brown matte a little more effortlessly. Okay, and now I do want to take it on my finger because I want to see how different it'll be. Per usual, I think that made it a little bit brighter. It's pretty standard with a shimmer on your finger. Okay, now I'm going to take the shade Blossom, which is this purpley gray. Ooh, now that's interesting, right? Should I do that, or is that going to be too weird? There's also the shade Coast, which would be way safer. But do I want to go safe? That Blossom shade was calling to me. And there's also, again, a safe, this brown shimmer. I might hold off on using this purple shimmer because there is a beautiful purple matte in the palette. I think this palette on the whole is constructed very well. I mean, I can see so many different looks, but there's a lot that can work with other things, you know? I don't feel like it's pretty much have to follow the blueprint, otherwise it's not gonna work. I think that you can get a lot of variety, but you could also play it a little safer, or you can do a mix of the two. So that Blossom shade was lovely, but I think I want to pair it with the purple matte. As far as these two, I'm going to go with the brown because I think that the bluey color will clash a little with my shirt, a little too much. That blue color is called Coast, but I'm going to go with the shade Strength. make sure I overlap pretty considerably into this green area, because there's quite a stark difference between the two depths of the shimmers, and so I would have sort of a wall of green over here and then the brown. So I want to overlap and make sure that they play nicely together and, you know, meld nicely together. But that's that. Now let's go back into Heal, which is this green matte, which I don't think I ever named yet in today's video. I do have a palette pull-in, which I'm considering using. It's actually pretty similar to that Coast shade that I just opted not to use. But we'll see, I don't know. I think my palette pull-in is a little bit less blue, and that's why I'm thinking it might work. Back into the darker brown, which is Wood. So this palette is called Earth Wood, and the two brown shades are called Earth and Wood, which is cute. My eyelids are actually a little bit sore. Did you see the video using Wolf and Snow Moon from Ensley Rain, where I did some dots of color on my lower lash line, and I adhered the dots with lash glue? Yeah, it worked a little bit too well, and didn't love that feeling. Now into Earth, going right under this dark brown matte. Okay, so here's my palette pull-in. It's the Margarita palette from Glamlight. This is my palette pull-in. You can see it's, I'm gonna have to compare them. This is called Presidente. I think, oh no, I was wrong. This one is actually more green. This is from Earthwood, and Presidente is more blue. So I think I'll skip my palette pull-in today. And instead grab a Beauty, since I'm staying in this palette. Beauty within Earthwood, and just pop it here. Just a tiny, tiny bit. Beauty actually reminds me a lot, maybe I'll swatch it, of the Elf Wish shade in Merry Christmas. Hold that thought. Okay, the final look is a little bit murky, a little swampy and dirty and grungy, but I don't dislike it. At the end of the day, I think it's more a matter of the colors I chose rather than anything else, actually. Let me tell you what I did to finish off, and then there are two things I want to do to close out today's video. First off, in my waterline, I used brown from LA Girl. I tried to use this green from ColourPop, but this one is all, they're starting to dry out on me. To be fair, I've owned these creme gel liners for several years. Pretty much since I started doing eyeshadow is how long I've had most of my creme gel liners. At some point I might need to just throw them away as we go, and I just can't get them to work. And these LA Girl liners, what are they? The Glide Gel Liner, at least the one in brown, super smooth and creamy. I really like it. I also think that it's not necessary to have every possible color, which kind of harkens back to the beginning of my eyeshadow journey when I bought all the ColourPop I could afford, which was a lot because ColourPop is very affordable, and we weren't really on a budget at that point, weren't paying attention to finances, I'll say. It's one of those things that was easy to watch the money bleed, you know. Anyway, I digress. The point is I bought a lot of ColourPop, and I was like, all of the creme gel liners and all of the colors for all of the possibilities. And now I recognize that while that is fun, it's really not necessary, and you don't go through the product fast enough to use it up. Hence my creme gel liners drying out. Anyway, this one's very nice. I have mascara on, and then on my lips I've been wearing two things. I've got the Italia Deluxe liner in 1064 Hazelnut. I only line the lips with that, and then I have the e.l.f. Glow Reviver Lip Oil Honey Talks. That's what I am wearing on my lips. On my face I do have this from Nomad. I used to use this is the shade Positano Sunrise. I used to use it as a highlighter, and I came to find that it was just too pigmented for me to be a highlighter, so now I use it as a glowy blush, and I love it. I love a peach blush, but I also topped it further with another glowy product. This is the Star Surfer Space Age highlighter from Kaleidos. And that's it for everything. So again, check my description box if you want links to whatever I can link. Let's quickly talk about that shade that I thought was like Merry Christmas. I'm talking in the Earthwood palette, this shade called, let me clean off my finger because I am trying to avoid hard pan. The shade called Beauty, which in the pan looks like a green gold shifting shade. And I'm comparing it to the original Merry Christmas palette. And I say original because I keep hearing rumors that when they came back with the relaunch or the re-release of these the second year, they are not the same quality as the originals, because everybody raved about the originals, myself included. I have the 2 original, Merry Christmas and Christmas Eve, but then the restock of these didn't seem to get such good reviews, and I've heard other people say that they think restocks are a different formulation, which is really uncool. Total bait and switch. Now, I don't have confirmation on that. Anyway, this is that shade from Earthwood, and I want to compare it to Elf Wish up here, which is gorgeous. And again, in the pan, Elf Wish looks to be like just that green gold. I want to see if they're the same color. This first one was Earthwood, and the second one was Elf Wish. As far as texture, I thought that one looked a little bit thinner on my finger. Okay, when I look at them from some angles, they're exactly the same. But from another angle, I think that the very foundational base pigment of the color might be a slightly different kind of pigment. I don't even know if I can say color, but I feel like this second one, which was Elf Wish, the original, and you can see on my fingers the way that they swatched out or like smeared. This one is looking a little bit thinner, a tiny bit smoother, and then this one looks to still have some more opacity to it, and that's what I see on my hand in different lighting. I feel like Elf Wish sort of just disappears a little bit. I don't know if you guys are catching any of that on the camera. I hope you are. This is Elf Wish over here. So I think that Elf Wish might have a slightly different level of opacity. Okay guys, I had to do this because I felt like in my editing process, these colors were looking nothing alike on camera, and in real life they look so similar, I thought they were dupes. So this is the shade from Earthwood, and this is Elf Wish. And you can see from different angles that they look almost the same, right? I do see more of a gold reflect in this one, and more thinness, as I say, in this one. You can see it sort of fading off my finger there. I just can't believe how different they looked in the swatches on the camera when I was filming. And you might have thought I was completely insane thinking that these were worth swatching at all, but this is what I saw in my own lighting, and it was just so different from what I saw when I was editing the film. Looking at them this close, I do see some differences in the undertones or the base, as I say in the video, but it was just really interesting because face value, this is what you get. But then when you play with them a bit more, you get something different. So anyway, hopefully that makes me sound less insane as we finish out the comparisons. And then because of that opacity, I feel like Elf Wish is sort of fading into a soft gold, whereas this original shade, which is called, I forgot, Beauty, the original Beauty shade from Earthwood, seems to have less of a gold base and more of a green base. And now we know. So to close out today's video and just give you my final thoughts, first impressions of this palette, or technically second impressions, I am way happier with this than I was with the Mighty Monster. So today I have used every shade except for this one, and these two, which on their own would be a beautiful look. Today I used this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay, and previously I'd used these two together. So I have used most of the palette and I haven't noticed any problems. I've swatched or used all of the shimmers and they swatched fine. I didn't notice hard pan. I didn't notice that dry or gritty texture that I've noticed in Mighty Monster and some of the Yord's Divine. They feel fine. They feel like what I expect from Uden's Eye. I think I had a tiny bit of a harsher line blending out here between the two brown mattes, these two, specifically getting the brown matte to blend away. But honestly, that is kind of my experience with Uden's Eye in general. Not that I get harsh lines, but that the mattes, they don't buff and blend super easily. It's not like Sigma, it's not like ColourPop, where they're very, very, very beginner friendly. In my experience, and this is personally fine, Uden's Eye mattes tend to stay where you put them, and then you have to soften the edges. So as far as getting a harsher line, maybe I wasn't softening the edges enough. Maybe, if I get my mirror, I don't see any of that over here. I see a little bit of it over here, but part of that also is this green shimmer that's sort of bleeding into the dark mattes that might be creating a little harsher line. But I see a little spot right here. That could be how I laid down my primer. It could be that I didn't use my brush as optimally, or maybe I didn't apply quite the same amount of shadow on both sides. So there are other variables besides just the shadow. On the whole, I'm so much happier with this than what I experienced with the Mighty Monster, which is the same collection. I don't know how that works. I don't know what the discrepancies are or the variables. I don't know. I'm just really happy that I like this. So that's where we stand. Thank you so much for being here today. I would love to hear your thoughts about today's eye look, about the Earthwood palette, about Uden's Eye. I have I've done a lot of videos with Oden's Eye, and they were top brand for me for so long till I started having issues. So I'd love to hear if you've had any problems with them or what your thoughts are. Maybe you have some insight or personal experience as far as formulation changes or different formulas for restocks. That's a curious question. And also, I do have an Oden's Eye playlist, which I can link a card up here and link in the description box, so check that out if you like Oden's Eye and want to get lots of ideas. If you just want to watch videos on Oden's Eye products, I appreciate you so much for being here. Thank you for clicking on my video. Thank you for giving me a piece of your day. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.